Talk. I am your host, MISHUMA SABA, M.SABA, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Peace, and welcome to Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast Show, and I am your host, MISHUMA SABA, M.SABA, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. How y'all doing on this Monday night? Welcome, and welcome to the show. It's been a beautiful day. You know, in the city, we got up to close to 100 degrees, depending on where you at. Some parts of the city did reach 100 degrees. Others just kind of, fluctuated between like 96 to 98 degrees. But it's a beautiful day. It's not humid as our state is known to be, or our city at least, our state. Yeah, let's just say state. It's not as humid as it normally could be. But man, this has been a great summer. You know, how's the summer going with you guys out there, and you ladies? You know, let me know. Go ahead and leave a comment. But welcome to the show tonight. Again, this is Coffee Talk Podcast, and we appear every Monday night. This is our cultural studies night, and you got to just tune on Mondays, man, because our culture is so broad. You know what I'm saying? There's so much that we could never get done with just podcasting on Mondays 4 days out of the month. You know what I'm saying? So, there's going to be some things we'll jump around, but what we really want to do is we want to go ahead and educate our people, and also give them heroes and stories to listen to, and have something to look up to if you even want to share tonight's episode with your children or your young adults. This is exactly what this show is on Mondays. This is our cultural studies night. So I like to say I welcome you guys tonight, and we do have a great story in store tonight. We're going to be talking about the great King Askia Muhammad. That's right, Askia Muhammad. Can y'all say that with me? Askia Muhammad, if your parents are letting you watch the show tonight. But yeah, we're definitely going to talk about Askia Muhammad. And I want you to really pay attention to some of the things that he stood for, you know what I'm saying, and how he went about expanding, his legacy. Let's just say that. But if this is your first time tuning into the show, Coffee Talk Podcast, we never start the show without giving it its flavor, hence the word Coffee Talk Podcast. And so we're going to give you today's flavor, and we're also going to give you the wise words, and then we're going to go ahead and dive right on into our show tonight. So today's flavor is one of the best wines in the world. There's several top 10 wines that get rated every year, every 5 years, every decade. But tonight's wine is a white wine, and it's called Tres Picos. That's right, Tres Picos is today's flavor. Tres Picos white wine sells anywhere between $115 and $300 a bottle. That's right. It provides a rich taste with such tastes of blackberry, plum, tones of leather, and vanilla. And this Tres Picos white wine actually comes from the hills of the Moncayo Mountains. So today's flavor is Tres Picos white wine. So that's today's flavor. And you know how we do it here at Coffee Talk. We always say, come on in, Pour yourself some coffee, a cappuccino, a smoothie, some water, or some wine. But come on in, kick your feet up, and enjoy yourself. Welcome to our humble home here at Coffee Talk Podcast. So again, today's flavor is Tres Pacos, which sells in between $115 to $300 a bottle, and that is one of the top 10 white wines. Most definitely. You know, I was checking it out when I was doing my research, and a Tres Pecos Grenache, it's 100% Grenache, by the way, but a 2018 bottle actually was selling for $300, and I just looked at myself and said, wow, it must taste good. You know, again, they say that it tastes like blackberry, plum, tones of leather, and vanilla, you know. So let's say this before we go further away from today's flavor. But what are the 4 key elements that actually go into a great white wine? So let's go ahead and talk about it. Well, some of the 4 elements that contribute to the uniqueness of white wines is number 1, the grapes and what type of grapes are used in the wine. Also, what region it's from, you know, those grapes, or also the environment of the grapes, such as the temperature, the soil, the rainfall. These are all contribute to the uniqueness of the white wines, and also how the grapes are harvested. So there's something that you learned right there about white wines whenever you are out at the store, you at any one of these retail stores that got the connection with the liquor stores built into them, and you buying you some, you know, whatever you eat, some pasta, some whatever you eat. You know, whatever you eat, and you're going to have a nice night. You're going to grab you some wine. Well, these are the 4 key elements of the uniqueness of the wine. So you definitely learned something today here with today's flavor. Again, today's flavor is Tres Pecos white wine. All right, now we're going to go ahead and dive right into the wise words. Today's wise words comes from a legend out of Macon, Georgia. That's right, a legend out of Macon, Georgia. We also know him of the king of rock and roll. And his name he goes by is Mr. Little Richard. Rest in peace to Little Richard, no doubt, no doubt. But Little Richard's wise words was this. Little Richard said, I try to be a guide for people, to make their darkness bright, and to make a pathway light, and never condemn, control, or criticize. These are the wise words of Little Richard. Again, he says, I try to be a guide for people, to make their darkness bright, and to make the pathway light, and never condemn, control, or criticize. That's legendary, one of ours, Mr. Little Richard out of Macon, Georgia, king of rock and roll. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into the show tonight. Again, we are discussing, we're not having a discussion, but we're having a story. You know, every Monday we do stories, we do poems. You know, we like to celebrate our people. We like to celebrate our culture. All right, so tonight we're talking about the king, Askia Muhammad, born 1493, or his reign, I should say, is from 1493 to 1528. And like we always do, we always like to give props to a book that we're reading, so that people can go out and search for the story or even purchase the book. So this story is coming out of a salute to historical African kings and queens. That's right, a salute to historical African kings and queens. So we're going to go ahead and discuss King Askia Muhammad. Let's go ahead and begin. Upon the death of Sunny Ali, his son Bakori Dia inherited the throne. Like his father, he subscribed to traditional African beliefs. Because Bakori would not convert to Islam, he eventually lost the support of the trading cities, which were the centers of Islamic power. After a year, he was overthrown by Muhammad Touré. Sunny Ali's chief minister became emperor in 1493, taking the military title of Askia. So Askia not only was the name, his real name, it was actually a title he took on. Like Sunny Ali, Askia Muhammad reigned for 35 years. Under Askia the Great, The empire of Songhai extended eastward over the Hausa states across the northern part of Nigeria into the Sahara region and west to the Atlantic Ocean. Songhai became the largest and the most powerful of the West African empires. Three aspects of Askia the Great's reign deserve mentioning. Unlike Sunni Ali, he based his power on the trading towns and ruled in accord with Islamic teachings and traditions. Accordingly, his dynasty was replete with professionals, judges, tradesmen, artists of Islamic persuasion, and Askia sought their advice. To strengthen Islam in his country, Askia the Great restored Ammar as governor of Timbuktu. Ammar had previously governed that city, but he fled when Sunni Ali when Sunni Ali sieged Timbuktu. Like Mansa Musa, Askia also made a lavish pilgrimage to Mecca almost 150 years later. Although his Hajj did not receive nearly the attention of the ruler of Mali while he was in Egypt, Askia Muhammad was honored by the Khalifa of Cairo by being appointed as the Khalifa's personal representative to the Sidonic region. When Askia Muhammad returned to Goa in 1497, he was strengthened in the Islamic faith, and he considered his duty to extend his empire in the name of Islam. In an effort to convert the people of Songhai, Askia the Great was victorious in initiating a series of jihads, which are also known as holy wars. Other campaigns were committed to capture the various trading centers. In 1501, Askia defeated Mali, and in 1513, the Hasua territories became part of his domain. He also conquered a settlement in the northern part of Songhai, and the principality had to pay an annual tribute of approximately $150,000. Although Askia was a military leader of the highest ability, his record was without failure. King Kanta, a ruler of a small kingdom located between the Hausa states and the Niger River, was able to maintain his people's independence. Alongside from being a successful military combat, Askia Muhammad is also created with further developing strongly centralized government. The most important government posts of his dynasty were the treasurer, the chief of tax collection, chief of the navy, chief of the forestry, woodcutters, and chief of fishermen. Songhai is also a culture and intellectual rebirth under the leadership of Askia Muhammad. Centers of learning were established in Goa, Guinea, and Timbuktu. The curriculum included courses of astronomy, mathematics, medicine, rhetoric, and philosophy. Professor Ahmad Baba, a faculty member of the University of Sankore in Timbuktu, authored more than 40 books, and his personal library included 1,600 volumes. In 1528, after it became known that Askia was weakened by the onset of blindness, one of his sons, Musa, forced him to give up the throne. Then in 1531, Askia's nephew, Muhammad Mar, ascended the throne and immediately forced Askia into exile, while he remained until 1537, when another one of his sons ascended the throne and freed him. Askia Muhammad died 1 year later on March 2nd, 1538. He was 97 years old. Askia Muhammad was the complete antithesis of Sunni Ali. While Ali defended traditional African religiosity, under the leadership of Askia the Great, the armies of Islam triumphed over the Sudan region. Askia the Great was most likely the most devout Black Muslim king of ancient West Africa. This is tonight's story of Askia Muhammad in his reign from 1493 to 1528. So what do you think about that story? What is your thoughts on it? Some of the key points that stuck out to me was the fact that he had a centralized government. And we always like to explain that the more you research, the more you realize that other countries, other civilizations already had centralized banking, already had centralized governments. What also stood out to me, though, was about the tax. And I wonder, how did he really run that? You know, in Islam, they don't like to pay tax. You know, people do, especially if you're American Muslim and you're in America, I get it. But, you know, in Islam, you don't really pay tax, at least amongst each other. You know, what other parts of the story stood out to you? Go ahead and leave a comment. Askia Muhammad. What's your thoughts on this story? Did you understand how when he stated that when he revised Songhay, he brought the culture and the intellectual rebirth to the area, which included Goa, Jenny, and Timbuktu. I know in the 90s, they used to talk about Timbuktu a lot if you was in a Black history course. But I know up north here, there's not many classes such as that inside those school systems. And that's why you have to get your education, your knowledge, your culture, get that from enlighteners. Get that from people like myself or people that have shows that want to give our people the utmost respect and truth about who we are. Because you can't get it nowhere else. You can't expect your oppressor to feed you with knowledge. He thinks you are overthrown. What other parts stuck out to you tonight about Askia Muhammad? And why did he allow King Kanta, a ruler of a small kingdom located between Hausa states and the Niger River, he was able to maintain his independence? It seems as Askia Muhammad was a great man. And King Kanta's small kingdom wasn't worth taking. In Islam, you rarely find them fight amongst one another. They don't go to wars with one another. How about the fact that when he was ruling and he decided that in accord with his Islamic teachings and traditions that he brought with him, he built up professionals, judges, tradesmen. And with the culture, it brought artists of Islamic persuasion. He wanted to strengthen Islam, and that's what he did. He also had a son by the name of Musa. What do you know about Musa? Go ahead and let us know. We did a show on him about a month ago. Go ahead and check that out in our archives here at Coffee Talk Podcast. All right. So with that being said, that's tonight's story, Askia Muhammad. And I just want to say, this is it went over a little bit, but usually our short show where we call the Espresso. But this is our Coffee Talk Espresso. Tonight's short story, again, is Askia Muhammad. And we'd like to go ahead and thank you again for tuning in to Coffee Talk Podcast. This is our cultural studies night. And I do want to say this as we get ready to go. Next Monday, You might want to really tune in. We're going to be discussing a chapter out of The Destruction of the Black Civilization, book by Chancellor Williams. We're going to be discussing the Scholars' War on Blacks. That's right. There's a segment in there. There's actually a small, brief chapter in there called The Scholars' War on the Blacks. We're going to go ahead and break that down next Monday. So definitely make sure that you are tuning in here to Coffee Talk Podcast. All right. Thank you. I'm going to hit you with the universal peace sign. And don't mind me. Y'all know I'm sweating under these lights. But anyway, man, peace and love to y'all, man. Stay sucker free and continue to support the livest cultural podcast out right now. That's Coffee Talk Podcast with your host, MISHUMA SABA, M.SABA. And this is our cultural variety podcast. We out of here. Peace. Thank you for supporting the show.